Let me come back up to the top here. And let me point out, in this right-hand column, there's some more information. Let me scroll down a little bit more. We always have contact information. So, you know who to reach if you want to ask some questions about it. Right above that, you'll see it says potential collaborators. And then it's telling me X number of people inside the institution and X number of people outside. So this is where Pivot basically looks at this funding record and says, okay, this is about cancer research, and some other details. And then it compares that using an algorithm to those scholarly profiles and says, okay, here are some people that are doing cancer research at your university. And so these are some possible people that might be interested in either applying for this or collaborating on this grant, sometimes if that's required. And you can actually click on this. So this would be, clicking on this number, it's going to show me, it's telling me there's 271 people at Case Western, and it's going to give me a list. So, for this particular funding record, it's telling me there's 271 people at Case Western Reserve that, have some kind of match. And, from here I can go and check out their profiles. If I wanted to narrow this down further, it's also giving me the opportunity to look at those outside. So all the other universities around the world. Oh, there's only 43,000 of those. Okay, well, let's take a look. Probably more profiles than you want to, scan through. So we've actually just this morning released an enhancement to this feature that allows you to narrow that list down further. This was the sort of first release of this functionality, and then yesterday we did some more enhancements to it. So there's also another aspect to this where Pivot can suggest funding for you based on what's in your profile. So it uses that sort of algorithm to sort of match some funding to you. Oh, there we go. So there's some different aspects to it that will push things out to you. So I've got my results here, and one thing you can do if you're looking at matches is you can narrow it down. So, I'm looking for somebody doing, for this record, it's giving me all these matches, but I'm specifically looking for somebody in, perhaps environmental science, let's say environmental toxicology, and that narrows it down to 32 people. So, this is one way that Pivot does some matching and will suggest possible collaborators, or if you're just looking for somebody who's an expert, especially if it's if you're doing some kind of interdisciplinary research, you may know people in your field pretty well, but not necessarily in some of the other fields, in some of the other disciplines that you're working with. So it's a tool that can help you find some of those people. And we're going to look at these profiles in more detail a little bit later. But let me get back to the funding record, actually. So that's that matching function that you see in that right-hand column for any particular record. Now I want to talk about what's up here in the upper right. So you see where it says track, set to active, and share. Those are some different things you can do with these records. You do need to be logged in order to do that. So if you're not, it's going to say log in to track or log in to share. So, if this is a record you're interested in, you can basically put it on a list of favorites, kind of like a bookmark, basically. And so you maintain your own list of things that you're interested in. And in your Pivot account, there are two kinds of lists. There's one called the active list and one called the tracked list. Only difference between them is what's most important to you, or what are you focused on right now, would go on your active list. And your tracked list is just, well, this is interesting, but maybe lower priority, or I want to look at this later. So that's really the only distinction between those. But let's say, I look at this and I say, okay, this is interesting. I'm going to put this on my active list. So I would click Set to Active. All right, and now it's set, it's starred and indicated. Now it's on my active list. Those lists, those will show up on your home page, which we'll look at in a couple of minutes, and I'll show you the things you can do with it from there. But basically, once you put it on your active list, now that turns on that alerting function. So again, if that record gets updated or if it expires, it would send you an email to notify you about that. Here where it says 0 others, this is just telling you if anybody else at the university has it on their tracked or active list. You would, this one tells me nobody else does, but if someone else did, I'd see a number there. Now, you won't be able to see who those people are, but you'll just see that there is somebody else that has it on the list.
Would those people come from that list of potential collaborators from within your university? Would it come from that list then?
No, there's no connection between those. It's just if somebody has actually, clicked on it and said, set to active or put on my tracked list. I mean, probably there would be some overlap, but not necessarily. So, there's another thing you can do here, and that's sharing. So when you click on share, pulls up a little box, and you can just type in the names of the people you want to share with. And what happens is it will pull up the index of everybody at the university who has one of these scholarly profiles in our database. So if you're sharing with another faculty member, their name should show up in the list. I say should. It doesn't necessarily always happen. But, in this case, it's pulling up, I'm going to share with my good buddy Bob Bobowitz. And, you can add multiple names there. Basically just typing in and it pulls up matches. If you want to share with somebody whose name doesn't come up on the list, you can do that. You just have to type in their email address. So, if you're sharing with a student or, perhaps somebody in the office here who doesn't have a profile, or even sharing with somebody outside the university, you can do that. Now, if you share with somebody either from another school or perhaps it's, an outside consultant or something that doesn't have a Pivot subscription, they'll get a link. Basically, you get an email that has a link to the record. People that don't have a Pivot subscription can look at that record for 2 weeks, and then it expires. So you can share with people that aren't subscribers, but there is a limited window that they can view that. Whereas if you share with somebody who does, they can look at it as long as they need to. When you share, one thing that you can do is you can create groups. So if you're sharing with a group of people all the time, you don't have to type in their names over and over again. So I'll save this name as a group, just give it a name. And that way, when you share, you can just call up those groups and it auto-populates all those names and email addresses. I can put in a message here. And then click the send button. And that fires off an email to all those addresses, all those people. It'll also go on to their Pivot homepage. And we'll see what that looks like a little bit later. One thing I should have mentioned actually when I put it on my active list, if you put something on your active or tracked list, you can also tag records. Basically, it's just a way that you can organize them and makes it easy to find them later on. So, if you're doing a search and you say, okay, this is for, Project X, whatever, I'll add a tag for that. Actually, I have to click Create New to do that. Create. It'll remember your tags, so as you add new ones, they're already checked here. I can add additional ones. It just makes it easier you can filter your lists by these tags. So if you have, a dozen items on there, no big deal. If you have 100 items, well, filtering by tags makes it a little easier to find those. There's also a link here, see more opportunities like this one. Kind of like, Amazon, you pull up a book, it gives you here are some other books that are, similar. That's what this is. It's basically going to find some other records, in this case, that are probably about cancer research. So those are all the things that you can do with an individual record. That's all the kinds of information that you'll find. Let me go back to my list of results. And I'll point out a couple other things here. You notice that there's a little magnifying glass next to each record. If you click on that, it lets you just have a quick glance at the abstract and eligibility information. So it makes it a little bit easier if you're reviewing that list of results. Same thing for deadlines, it gives you more details there. And then also for dollar amounts. And there's also some check boxes. If you check items from your list of results, then you get some buttons that show up along the top. So this is how you could add several items at once to your tracked list if you want to. And of course you can add your tags here. Add several items to your active list, share multiple items, or if you want to export, you can download the information about those records to a text file or a spreadsheet. You can choose which fields you want to include in there. And basically that's just saving, exporting the information, saving it to a file. Now this search that I've done, very broad, lots of results. So let's talk about ways to refine those results. Again, always good to start broad and narrow down. One quick way that you can do that is by using these facets on the left here. So you'll see it's telling me out of the 930 results, there are 44 that have limited submission requirements. Like you were saying, perhaps only one applicant per university. So it's important to know about that information. Incidentally, let me see if I have one here. I don't. There would be a little limited tag that shows up right in the record too, to indicate that. Other internal coordination, that just, if there's additional requirements perhaps beyond limited submission. Then you have the top 5 funding types. And you see there's research, has the biggest share. But then there's also, there's 172 that are actually training or scholarships or fellowships, postdoc awards. So it's the top 5 for these other funding types. Also the top 5 sponsor types, federal government, private foundation, top 5 requirements, and top 5 keywords. So, I could say, well, actually, I'm looking for research funding, and that narrows it down a little bit. And I'm also specifically looking in the context of cancer prevention, and that's going to narrow it down to 160. So that's a real quick way that you can focus your results a little bit. Okay, back to my search results. So, I've narrowed this down a bit. If you get a good search and you say, okay, this is good, I want to save it, you see right above the results there's a Save Search link. And you can give it a name. When you save it, there's a checkbox that's going to ask you, would you like to receive a weekly email containing new or updated opportunities for this query? So this is that other kind of alert. This is going to send out an email once a week on Sundays. And basically for all of your safe searches, you get one email, and it has the name of the search, and then it lists, there are X number of new or updated records. Anything that's new, it would have it's marked as such, and then there's links that you can go and view those records. Here, I'll actually show you an example. So here's an example of one of those funding alert emails. For my search called STEM, there's 3 new or updated ones. 2 of them are new. One of them looks like it's been updated, and these are hyperlinks, so I can click through and view those. So once you have a good search in there, it can kind of run on autopilot and send you new stuff once a week. And you can save as many searches as you want. You can track as many records as you want. There's no limits on those.